All right.
Okay, we should be back on YouTube. And I welcome everyone back. And at this time, I'd like to call the order of the Pleasant Grove City Council on this Tuesday, March the 31st, 2020. It is now 6:22 in the evening, and we welcome everybody that's joined us here this evening. And to start off, I'd like to have another roll call of our elected officials, and we would start out with Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock,
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen,
Yes.
and Councilmember Lamone,
Yes.
and Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. All our council is present. Got some feedback going on somewhere there from somebody. If you're not talking, if you could mute, that'd be great. And to start our evening, we'll have Kyler will give us the Pledge of Allegiance, after which Councilmember Anderson will give us opening remarks. If we'd please stand, and there is the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America
and to the
and to
republic
the
which
republic
stands
for which it
one
stands,
nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Father in heaven, we're very grateful to bow before thee at the beginning of this meeting. And we're grateful for the opportunity that we have to serve the citizens of Pleasant Grove. We pray at this time for some special blessings, that our town will be protected, that our first responders will be protected, that we will think of each other and watch out for each other. We are grateful for this time when we can band together and be strong for each other. Again, we're very grateful for our opportunity to serve. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Thank you, Kyler and Diana. Now, I'd like approval of tonight's approval of our meeting agenda.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda.
I have a motion by Councilmember Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second. We'll take the second from Councilmember Bullock. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll now move to our open session, and we do not have anyone present in the public safety building in our community room to come up and address the council. I would like to mention to anybody who was on our YouTube, if you would like to make any comments, you're welcome to do so and submit them to us, and we will get back with you. So,
Mayor, can I just talk protocol a little bit?
you bet. Thank you, Scott.
So because of the uniqueness of this meeting and making sure that we are taking care of the public, like you just said, our intent will be, if there are individuals that want to make public comment via YouTube, they can type those comments in. Kyler will take note of them, and then we'll read those at the end of the meeting, if that's okay.
Okay.
And we'll do the same with our public hearing. When we do our public hearing, we will allow comments on YouTube, which means after the presentation, we won't take action until later in the meeting to give people an ample opportunity to comment via YouTube. So we'll do the presentation, we'll open it up for public comment, we'll close the presentation, we'll take care of the rest of our business, and then at the end of the meeting, we'll read any comments into the record, and then we'll take action on the public hearing item. The rest of the items are not public hearings, so we won't need to do that same protocol.
Okay, thank you for making that a lot clearer. So anyway, so thank you, and we ask anybody who'd like to do that to follow that procedure. Well, now I'm going to move to item number 6, our consent items for this evening, which include the consent item A, City Council minutes. B, consider approval of payment request number 2 for Cody Elker for the PI filters and diversion project. And C, to consider approval of payment number 4 and change order number 1 for CNL Water Solutions for the fiscal year 2018-19 sewer rehabilitation project. And D, consider for approval of payment approval reports for March the 19th and the 26th, 2020. So that's our consent items. If there's no other questions from the council on them, I would ask for a motion.
Mayor, this is Marty.
Yes.
Just really quick, I'm noticing on item number C that it's saying change order number 1, and that should be change order number 2. The documentation in your packets is for change order number 2. So just to clarify, it looks like I maybe gave the wrong information to Kathy on that, but it should say change order number 1. Change order number 2.
On number C, is that correct?
Correct. Payment number 4 and change order number 2, CNL Solutions, Inc.
Okay, we note that correction there. Councilors, any other further discussion? If not, I ask for a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion on our consent items tonight, and as Marty has stated them.
We have
I'll
a
second
motion
that.
by Councilmember Jensen. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Councilmember Williams. Now this will be, we're going to do roll call votes on everything this evening, so Kathy can, so we'll start out with Diana, with Councilmember
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock,
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. We'll now move on to our next item here this evening. We have no board or commission committee appointments or presentations, and we'll move right into our public hearing for this evening. Item number 9A, public hearing to consider for adoption ordinance 2020-4, amending city code section 101541, street frontage improvements, adjusting the threshold requirement for when the street frontage improvements are required, the criteria for approving these acceptations and modifying the current requirements for the waiver of the protest and providing for an effective date. Director Cardenas, are you on, and can you enlighten us a little more on this?
Thank you, Mayor. Can you guys hear me loud and
Yes.
clear?
Yes.
Yep.
Without an accent?
Without an accent. Amazing.
Awesome, great. We should do it like this anytime then. So, Mayor, as you mentioned, this item is for a code amendment regarding the requirements for street frontage improvements. So when we talk about street improvements, what are we referring to? Usually when we talk about street improvements, we talk about curb, gutter, and sidewalk. Currently, right now, our code requires the installation of all missing street improvements at the time of construction or reconstruction. That's how our code is written, right? Every time someone's gonna build or remodel, we will require the installation of the street improvements against curb, gutter, and sidewalk. However, there are some exceptions, okay? There's some cases when they're gonna do something with their properties, either a remodel or a new build, that we look at some exceptions. And that's where the devil is. The devil is in the details. So these are some of the exceptions that we have. Now, when I created this table, can you guys see my mouse going on?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so when we created, I created this table is to show us up something because it's important to talk about the history of this part of the ordinance. This ordinance actually was revised and it was amended in 2016. And many of you who are in city council were in the city council around that time. The city council met with the planning commission a series of times, and then the staff received some direction on how to change those exceptions. So that's why I have right here a table showing before July 2016 and after July 2016. This is the list of exceptions that we have before July 2016. We were saying that for any any addition less than 300 square feet, then you were okay. That was an exception. But let me go through the exceptions in 2016. Construction or expansions of all accessory buildings less than 500 square feet. So if your building was going to be less than 500 square feet, you didn't have to put improvements. You qualify for the exception. Remodeling value of 30,000 or less, okay? And no matter the location no matter the location, the improvements were always required. Meaning that if you were going to be, for example, 31,000 on your remodeling of your kitchen, it didn't matter where you were located. The street improvements were going to be required. Now, in 2016, again, Planning Commission, City Council, and as I was reading the staff report, and I think that was the first month when I started working for Pleasant Grove City, staff met with everybody, and then we came out with this new ordinance in 2016. We made it very more lax. We made it more amicable to the developers. For example, we said, instead of only having the threshold at 300 square feet of an addition to the building, let's increase that to 700. Instead of only limiting to 500 square feet an accessory structure in the backyard, let's make that bigger. Now we're going to take into consideration the 10% of the minimum lot size in the zone in which it's located. For example, if they were in an R110 zone, or let's make it easier, in an R18 zone, 800 square feet was going to be the limit. So we make everything easier, or we make the threshold bigger, so the developers, the residents, didn't have to put improvements, but we still set up a threshold. We just make it more friendly, or we make them friendlier. And then we remove the remodeling value. We say, you know what, right now remodeling a bedroom is just one bedroom is quite expensive. If you remodel right now your kitchen and just remodel your kitchen, you're gonna go over $30,000. So we say, you know what, that doesn't matter. You can remodel the entire interior of the house. We're not gonna require street improvements for that. And we came out with a new caveat. And we said, if you don't qualify for any of this, but the location of your property is 300 feet away from the nearest existing street improvements, if you're farther than that, you don't have to put them in. You don't have to put them in. Okay, so that was the threshold that we came out with, which it was obviously better than no matter where, you're still gonna put them in. So that's how it was. Lately, staff was instructed to review this, to take a look at this a little bit more. Since 2016, and the next list of numbers that I'm gonna show you, they are approximates. They were provided by our engineering department, and they are approximates, okay? So what happened after July 2016? Well, after July 2016, we got a total number of 11 applications for either a remodel or for a brand new, for a remodel or for an addition, okay? And these numbers show if we get 11 of them, 5 of them did install the street improvements, and 6 of them did not install the street improvements. To the 11 of them, it was required, but only 5 did it and 6 did not. Now, what are the reasons why those 6 did not install it? We don't know. It could have been that they pulled out the permit. It could have been that they didn't have enough money. It could be many reasons. We don't have a specific reason why they did pull out their permit, but this table is only to show that from 2016, after we amended the code, 5 people did follow through and did install the street improvements. So that shows kind of like a rate, at what rate we are getting portions of the street improvements in the city, okay? So again, in the last 4 years, we got 5 people doing that. Here's a little, it's a simple graph. It just shows that 45% of the people who applied did, and 55 did not go ahead and install them. So staff was looking at this a little bit closer, and I think on this one was engineering, planning, and the legal department. We all got together, and we were trying to make this even a little bit more amicable to the developers, if I may say that. And we came out with this piece of ordinance, okay? So what is a scratch is what we decide we're gonna get away with, and what's in red is the new language proposed. So we decided that the 300 feet away, or the 300 buffer was gonna be eliminated, and now we were gonna make it more amicable, we wanna say it that way, for the developer. And we were only gonna require the improvements if you were next to or adjacent to a property with existing improvements. So we make it more amicable, if I can say that again. I think I say amicable like 5 times already, but we made it more laxed, okay? And the other part of this ordinance that we amended, or the staff is proposing to amend, is once one of the applicants fit into one of these exceptions, okay, once the staff decided, yeah, you fit into the exceptions, they needed to do a waiver of protest, okay? And the waiver of protest was, it was only for the person, and once they sell the property, that waiver of protest needed to be redone, if I might say that. So that's how it's written. And maybe Tina can speak later on, but it was an engineer as well. It was kind of complicated to actually go through this to implement the waiver of protest, okay? So the proposal from the staff, again, was to modify the buffer requirement of 300, make it now only to properties that are adjacent to existing ones, and to get away with the waiver of protest, okay? Everything else will stay the same. This item, City Council, was taken to the planning commissioners. The planning commissioners take their time, they review it, and their decision, which was unanimous, was that the work done in 2016 was pretty extensive and pretty good. That at least they came out with a system to require the street improvements, and that they thought that the 300 feet away was good enough to stay there. So their recommendation, the unanimous recommendation, was to keep number 7, exception number 7 as it is, and do not amend that, but yes, to eliminate the requirement of the waiver of protest. So that was the recommendation of the Planning Commission, again, was to eliminate the waiver of protest, but to keep number 7 as it is, and not the proposal of the staff. I think I emailed you earlier some of the comments mentioned by the planning commissioners, and they understand that at this point, I mean, again, if we look at the numbers, only 5 people have added the street improvements since 2016, and they understand that it's a very slow and ineffective way to do it, but at least there is a way to do it. And they argued that just by having those 100 feet of extra improvements of a sidewalk, of gutter, and something like that makes the city even a tiny little bit safer and more walkable. And that's what they are proposing. Now, in regards to, in some cases where those extra 100 feet of street improvements will cause a hydrology problem, for example, a drainage problem, then they think that this number 6 right here, exception, where it says any existing situations involving topographical or storm drain issues that are unable to be mitigated as determined by the city engineer. So the city engineer still has the capability to decide if there's a hydrology problem or a drainage problem of some type, or a geology problem, to qualify the applicant for an exception. Okay, so that's what I have, councils and mayor. I don't know if you guys have any questions. I'll be glad to answer.
Anybody got any questions for Daniel?
Isn't this monuments is, well, the beginning. So
Go ahead, Brent.
they're good changes though. I mean, the world, I mean, you think how fast the world is changing. And so the church has to adapt to.
What's up, Brent?
That's exactly right.
Not me. Scott, we're getting some feedback from someone else.
Yeah, we got some feedback going on there.
I think maybe Sid had something going on. Hey,
My comment was, isn't this really before the council as a result of one citizen who has a unique problem?
that's how it initially started. That situation's been resolved with that individual property owner. So it doesn't necessarily apply now to what we're contemplating. That was the driver for us to relook at this again.
How was that resolved?
We did, there are certain exemptions that they qualify, that somebody could qualify. We asked them to revisit the exemptions, and there were some drainage issues there in which that particular person was granted an exemption.
So I guess my position is if that's been taken care of and this hasn't come up previously, apparently, why are we even making these changes at all? We
Brent?
may need to get rid of E, but relative to number 7, I would say keep it at 300 feet.
Well, this has come
Well,
up many times, Brent, and we just don't hear about it as a council. So anyway, so go ahead,
And maybe-
Scott.
Again, this Marty, I think the reality is that you're not seeing the things we deal with day to day on these questions. And there's many people that come in and try to get a building permit, and it's shifted over to engineering to go out and do the evaluation. Sometimes it's, community development looks at it and says, hey, this is clearly, within the range and we need to look at it for additional improvements. We go out there, do that evaluation and give them the information that, hey, if you do your building permit, you're going to need to do this. And I think the reality is that even in the numbers that we've seen in the last 4 years, 50% of those say, hey, those improvements are fairly extensive, and we know they are, sometimes in the range of $30,000 to $40,000. And therefore, I think I can't afford to do the improvements to my house and do the improvements to my frontage. Therefore, I'm going to walk away. Now, the question.
Marty, that's fine, except these individuals, 6 individuals who decided not to install, we don't know why they decided not to install. Was it because of costs, or they had financial problems, or decided not to do it? I mean, there's a lot of reasons. I think that would be important for me to find out why they didn't do that, to see if this is really a big problem, because we only have 6 people.
Sure. And I guess that's the question, Brent, that we were kind of asking ourselves as we looked into this. We looked at how effective, 50% numbers here. Maybe that's true. Maybe there's other reasons. Some of those others decided not to move forward. But the reality is we're trying to figure out as a whole, if the goal of this program or this ordinance is to try to help our city become, have connected sidewalks, give places and safety for people, then over 4 years, Brent, we've got, a couple hundred feet of extra frontage that has now got curb, gutter, and sidewalk on it. And how effective is that in our overall goal of trying to get curb, gutter, and sidewalk throughout the city where it's missing? I don't know, and I think that was the discussion the last time, that's the way that we're going to be successful in getting a significant amount of improvement in our city. And so then the question needs to come, if that's not happening, then what is the value of getting street frontage improvements on a home that may, some may not be able to do it because of that requirement? Yeah. Is it nice to have a completed frontage? Yes. Is there added value to them? Yes. Does it potentially create a safety, a more safe situation potentially? And I think that's why we recommended, if they're next to something, it makes sense to extend it. If not, we have some that have been sitting there for 20 years and there's not any improvements either side of it. So that's kind of the question we're asking you is, is it worth that value?
Okay,
Well, the
Brent.
problem is the citizens who have come here can't afford it, and the city can't afford it. And so we're sitting here doing, according to what you just said, relatively unsuccessful in even the old ordinance or the older ordinance and the new ordinance. And And so do we decide to make it even easier?
I think part of it is as we've done this in the past, and what we're showing is that we have had people that would otherwise be doing these improvements to their home that have walked away from doing that because of the street improvement cost.
We
So
don't know
that's the
that.
trade-off.
We
Yeah.
don't know that, Scott. We assume that's true because we don't have any raw data to indicate why they decided not to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair comment. It's anecdotal. We've had people, some people told us that they're just not going to do the project. But again, that's anecdotal. I don't know if we have hard data that says this is exactly why these people didn't do this. And so I guess in my mind, that's just, it's something for us to consider. As staff, this is really a policy decision by our city council. We're not looking at this like really saying, hey, this is really, really important to us as a community. We change this or keep it the same. This was just some feedback we got as we were dealing with one particular property owner and caused us to reevaluate this to maybe come up with a different way to do this. And if since that one's been resolved, if the city council says, let's just leave it as is, we can leave it as is, and I don't think that's a problem per se. The waiver of protest, we do feel like it needs to go away. That could hold up somebody selling their home. And I would hate to see that happen, cause somebody to lose the sale of their home because of a waiver of protest that's been filed.
I agree with you on paragraph E.
Yeah, so really it's a policy call. If the council wants to keep it as is, that was the recommendation of the planning commission for number 7 to stay as is and not be changed. This is just an alternate for the city council to consider that if we want to narrow it even more, this is an opportunity to do that. If you want to just keep it as is, we can do that.
So Scott, so the ordinance 2020-4 is for a change in 7 as written, correct?
Yes.
So that would have to be amended because I think I'm leaning towards the advice of the planning commission and removing that. E, let me just make sure that I understand in plain language, what we're taking out is if the individual does repairs on a majority of their home and wants to sell that home, they don't have to make the street improvements according to the current requirement. Is that correct?
Yeah, but so Todd, on the waiver of protest, the recommendation of the planning commission and staff is to eliminate that altogether. On number 7, the recommendation of planning commission is to do away with the red language and keep what's crossed out.
Correct. Okay, but what I'm wondering is the ordinance before us, 10A, is it written such that we need to amend that language?
You don't have to. You can. I mean, well,
if we're going to keep 7, right?
Chime in on this, but in essence, we're just giving you the option A or B on number 7. And so if you choose A, then that part of the ordinance gets non-amended. And if you choose option B, then we amend the ordinance to change the language with what's in red.
Okay, and then E, we're just eliminating that waiver of protest on a potential sale.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
So Daniel, in what scenario would there be any scenario at this point that someone doing improvements to their home, a remodel, building on accessory building, would there be any scenario to an existing home where they would need to install curb, gutter, and sidewalk?
Yes, I mean, we're still keeping the other requirements the same. I mean, we still have the 700 square feet limitation on additions. We still have the 10% of the required acres they are located. We are keeping all of that. Meaning, if someone, this is just an extra layer, if you want to call it that way. But if someone comes with right now with a building permit, and this ordinance doesn't contemplate that, this ordinance still goes full force. So someone who wants to do, for example, right here, you guys can see this, they want to do an addition of 800 square feet, then the street improvements will be required.
Okay, so I guess that's what I'm wondering. So let's say they, on the back of their home, they want to build on an addition, a 2-story addition ends up being 1,000 square feet. If they want to build that on the back of their home, they have to install curb gutter and sidewalk in the front.
Correct.
Yes.
But why is that? That's what I'm trying to, because it's like we're penalizing people for improving their property. So why would they have to install $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 of street improvements for building an addition on the back of their family room or another story or whatever it is on the back of their home? Why would we require them? It's like we're penalizing them for improving their property, especially if it's not frontage.
Okay, that's the only tool that cities have in order to require the street improvements on the front. So
I'm sorry, I don't think that's fair though. I mean, then we have to come up with, and that's our job to come up with another tool, but we're penalizing residents for improving their property. It doesn't make sense to improve the frontage when you're building something on the back, or even an accessory apartment. It's now allowed to have extra income for their home. Now they have to install $40,000 to $80,000 in street improvements. That's our fault if we can't come up with the tool, but that's not the fault of the resident, I don't feel.
What's going to happen, and let me just kind of add on to what Sid's saying, what's going to happen is people are going to, when we write an ordinance like this or have an ordinance like this, what's going to happen is they're going to put 699 square feet of improvements. You know, they're not going to put 900 square feet of improvements or additions if they've got to improve the street in front of their house.
Well, I mean, we do have 5 people that have done it. And so there are some people that want those improvements and they're willing to pay for it. And really, in my mind, this is the policy question.
We're getting some feedback. Somebody needs to mute.
Yeah, somebody needs to mute. We got some conversations going in the background, somebody there.
So
that's
again,
better.
this is the policy question. Do we want to make this more accommodating for people that want to do additions? Or do we want to keep it as is and require more people to do this? Part of our research is we have found that this is not the greatest tool to get people to put in curb gutter and sidewalk in front of their home. We've had 5 people do it in the last 4 years. And so whatever those other tools are, we don't necessarily know. This is the tool that most cities use. We were just giving the city council an option to say, here's a way to make it even more narrow so that people can add on. They can do the 1,000 square foot addition. And if they're not directly adjacent to curb gutter and sidewalk, they won't be required to put the improvements in. But if they do a 1,000 square foot improvement and they are adjacent to curb gutter and sidewalk to their neighbors, then they will be required to put that in.
Okay, so, but this says if they do the 700 square feet, you're saying if that's behind their home and they're doing an addition and adding onto their home, then that would exclude them from this?
No,
If you
that would-
read number
if they do
7.
Less than 700, they'd be excluded. If they do more than 700, then it triggers the opportunity for us to require this. If
If they are adjacent to someone that has it.
Right now, if they're within 300 feet and not adjacent, they're required to put the improvements in, even though there might not be improvements on either side of them. What this is saying in the red is if they do more than 700 square feet addition, then they won't be required if there's no improvements on either side. They will
Right.
be required if there are, one of their property owners next to them already has the improvements in.
But we also have number 6, which says that if they build more than 700 square feet and they're not adjacent to, but that it causes storm drain, it's required to do it, which is actually the whole reason that we do this.
correct. So number 6 is still there. So if even if they're adjacent, let's say someone's adjacent, but number 6, the engineering department determines that, hey, if we actually implement this, it's going to create a topographical or again a hydrology problem, drainage problem, then they still can get the waiver. They still, no, sorry, not the waiver, the exception, because we're getting away from the waivers. They still can get the exception. That's what number 6 says.
And the exception, Daniel, that's just an exception. That's never that'll never come back and we will require that. Is that correct?
Which one, Councilman?
Yeah.
On six or seven, given the staff's language.
Okay, so on 6 and 7, again, so we will still require the street improvements, correct? And then the applicant usually will look for some, if they don't think that they need to improve them, they will look for an exception that they can apply to them. Again, if they meet the exception, for sure, we'll waive that requirement. If they do not meet the exception, we still will require the street improvements.
Yeah, let me take a crack at that. I think, Todd, what you're asking is, does that mean in the future, they're not going to be forced to put it in 10 years from now? Or there'll be a trigger that will force them to put it in 10 years from now? Is that what you're asking?
Yep.
And the answer to that is no, there is no trigger. You know, because what will happen is if you have, let's say we have a block that has 3 street improvements in and 6 not in, eventually that block is going to say, we want these or we don't want these. And if they never want them, then they're never going to happen unless they trigger this ordinance. And if they do, if the neighbors get together and say, you know what, we'd really like to have curb, gutter, and sidewalk in front of our home, then there's a mechanism they can work with us as a city and set up a special assessment area. And we can work with them on fronting the money to have those improvements go in, and they pay us back over time. And we've done a couple of those in the last 15 years. But that's driven by them. That's them approaching us and asking if they can do that. Because number one, we have to have the money to front before they pay us back. But that's a mechanism for neighbors to come together and say, we want to do this, help us out, city. They end up paying for it all, but they pay us back over time. But we're not forcing people to be in that.
So let's discuss number 7 then for just a second.
Scott, I see what you're saying as far as, like, I love that being the trigger is a neighborhood comes together and they want their curb, gutter, and sidewalk installed. What I don't understand is why the trigger is a remodel. Like, that's what I don't like, is the trigger being someone wanting to improve their own property, and now they have to take 40 to 50, like I said, tens of thousands of dollars to improve that. That's why I don't agree with the trigger. And what other cities are doing this, because that's the issue we had with Cedar Hills, why the mayor contacted us in Cedar Hills, because they don't have anything like this. And that's why they were confused about what was going on.
So
Yeah,
just
in our research, some cities do it and some don't.
the newer cities, do it.
Cedar Hills started out as a whole new city, and developers put in all their sidewalks, curbs, and gutters.
That's exactly right. So for cities that were developed without that requirement, where we have really existing homes with no curb, gutter, and sidewalk, this is our mechanism to get people to put it in.
Well,
So if you walk away from this and don't require it, then it's not going to happen.
Right, I guess that's what it is then.
By
Oh, sorry, go
putting
ahead,
in
Brent.
sidewalks, curb, and gutter, you do improve your property. From
But that,
standpoint, the value goes up.
that's true, but that should be the choice of the property owner. We're penalizing people for improving their own property. We're penalizing them for adding on. We're penalizing them. We're saying, you do this, and now you've got to install tens of thousands of dollars. I just don't agree with that. I don't think that's fair.
Sid, I don't see this as a penalty. I see it as a response to the city and a lot of cities who do not have sufficient funds to expect to do it themselves. And as the city develops, and when I first started, and when I lived here many hundreds of years ago, there was no curb and gutter. But how the city has to do it is either through the mechanism that Scott mentioned, or the city has to find some way, or we have to, as a city, put in curb, gutter, and sidewalk. And so this is a mechanism by which a city who has not put in curb, gutter, and sidewalk can get it done.
And I guess that's what I'm saying is I don't like the
Councilman
mechanism.
Williams,
Okay.
you had a question there. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So maybe Daniel can answer this question for me. I'm getting confused, Daniel, on the language that you wrote on number 7, or the staff wrote on number 7. The property is not directly adjacent to existing curb, meaning that if they are directly adjacent to an existing curb and they do have under they do have over 700 square feet, they will be required to put in the curb, gutter, and sewer.
That's correct. But they
Okay.
still need a letter from the
From the city
engineer
engineer.
recommending the exception be granted.
Where
This
the
is a-
planning commission recommended that it's within 300 feet of existing.
That's correct. So the idea, the compromise was this, because even among staff and evidently among the planning commissioners, the controversy is, are we going to require them to put it in at, if they're close, but not necessarily connecting to another piece of curb gutter and sidewalk? Or are we going to require them only if they're directly, going to connect to another piece of sidewalk? In either case, they still need a letter from the city engineer recommending that the exception be granted. So the language that was crossed out was the existing language. The planning commission recommends keeping the existing language. The staff had recommended that we loosen the requirement based on some conversations that have been had with the property owners, that it's a moot point now. So
Well-
it's basically up to the city council. If you want to keep it the way it is, that's certainly within your power to do so. If you think it should be loosened a bit, you can do that as well. I would suggest if you want to keep the language in 7 the same, that you just say that in your motion. That you're amending the proposed language to whatever you want it to be.
And Tina, thank you for that clarification. Why was the planning commission, what was their thought? What was their discussion? What was their thought in keeping it a little more strict?
Again, I think I sent you the comments on an email.
Yeah, I've got it. I'm kind of pulling that up as I'm listening as well, so.
Okay, so they recognize that it's a slower way to do it, but it's our way to do it. That they still will like a way to get some street improvements. They see the street improvements as a way for them, for a walkable community to be safe. And as they say, I'm gonna read this verbatim. It says, even an island of sidewalk is useful to a pedestrian walking along the street. They regularly walk in the city, including sometimes walking to their offices, and this is Peter Steele, where the sidewalk is inconsistent. When sidewalks are present, I walk on the sidewalk and I am safer for at least that 100 extra feet. So they think it's a system. Now, I just gotta say, maybe I don't wanna go back to the same conversation we had before, but we are not punishing or something like that for doing renovation. Renovations in the city are completely free. Some other cities do. Some other cities have, because I look at this, at least 20 cities. I went to the list of 20 cities. The only cities that don't have them are the brand new cities. But the rest of them, they all have something like this. And they vary a lot. For example, just our neighbor in American Fork, I don't know the number right now. They don't care if it's a renovation or an addition. They have an amount of money. And we, at least for renovation, we say, hey, you can renovate the entire inside of the house, and you don't have to do it only for additions. So that's something just to bring up. But
So just to be clear, this is only, and that's in our current language. Our current language is 700 square feet, so we're not changing that.
Correct.
We're actually making it a little less stringent by removing 7 or changing the language in 7 and eliminating E.
Correct. So it looks like,
Okay.
Thank you, Scott. Scott kind of like put the email right
I
there.
pulled this up, so I think it's important that you read what Peter has to say. I mean, he is representing the planning commission on how they thought and felt. So when we ask how they felt, this is what Peter sent us. And if you want, I can read it, or if you just want to read it on your own. But I think it's important that the council reads this, because this is the feelings of the planning commission.
So Scott, may I suggest, since we're doing this electronically, that it is read out loud, just to keep the record clear?
Okay,
Okay,
I'll go ahead and read it.
Thanks,
Wait.
Scott.
Before you read it, and Marty, I remember somebody putting up a map of the actual streets where we did not have sidewalk, curb and gutter. Do you remember that from a long time ago?
Daniel, I think Daniel put it up and it was like, what percentage of it has been completed?
Yeah, it was Marty's map. I think he
Last meeting.
And I mean, I got the map right here on my screen. I could show you after this, but
Okay, all right, because I want Sid to understand what percentage of the city we're talking about.
Okay. It is true that our existing system of requiring street improvements when an addition is made or an accessory building added to a property is slow, inefficient, and largely ineffective. At the current rate of improvement, it will likely be several hundred years before we have continuous sidewalk throughout the city. However, aside from new development and the occasional safe routes to school project, it's the only thing that gets any sidewalk built in our city. Even an island of sidewalk is useful to a pedestrian walking along that street. I regularly walk in the city, including sometimes walking to my office along 700 South where the sidewalk is inconsistent. When sidewalks are present, I walk on the sidewalk and I am safer for that 100 feet. Where there are no sidewalks, I walk on the gravel shoulder and am less safe. There are two goals at work in this situation that are somewhat in conflict. Number one, having a safe, attractive, and pleasant city. And number two, avoiding placing onerous burdens on property owners. The proposed ordinance only addresses one of these goals. It reduces an onerous requirement that some property owners would have difficulty meeting, but also has the end result over the long term of making our city less safe, attractive, and pleasant. In my opinion, it is unacceptable for our elected city officials to continue to ignore the safety and well-being of children, the disabled, cyclists, and citizens in general. One thing that our current state of social distancing has driven homes in is the poor state of our walking and biking infrastructure in the city. We pay lip service to the ideal of having a walkable, safe city, but aside from the small amount done through outside grants, safe routes to schools, and MAG transportation grants do little or nothing to make them a reality. To me, the ideal solution would be for the city council to set up a program to provide sidewalks along with the road program. Either construct them as other road improvements are constructed or focus on critical gaps in the network. A very minor increase in property tax of $1 to $2 a month would likely provide enough funding to allow the construction or repair of sidewalks with all city road improvements. If the council is determined to continue with this change to city code, I would suggest two modifications to the proposed ordinance. Number one, do not change the requirements for commercial properties. Commercial property owners can better afford to construct street improvements and are more likely to be in areas with higher pedestrian traffic. Number two, find a way to provide an alternative program to construct necessary street improvements where they don't currently exist. Thank you for your consideration, Peter Still. That's now officially read into the record.
Okay, now,
Okay, thank you, Scott.
those were the comments from Peter, but the motion from the planning commission again was, just as I explained it before, is to keep number 7 the same and eliminate the waiver of protest requirement.
Thank you. So the planning commission recommendation wasn't exactly what Peter stated here. It was just exactly as what Daniel stated.
Okay. All right, any other questions before we move on to, we still have a public hearing to go on here, and we'll talk about this some more later.
Yeah, let's go to public hearing, Mayor.
Okay. Well, we'll now open this up to our public hearing and ask anybody to come forward or who are on electronically to submit their proposals over the next minutes or more than that, and we'll discuss this at the end of the meeting with those that are sent electronically. I see no one coming forward to the podium at this time, and so I'll now address that we will close this public hearing and bring it back up to the council, and also with that, I will ask the council that we put this off to the latter part of our meeting so we can see if anybody's addressed us electronically, and then have a further discussion, and then have an action item at that time if we have a motion and a second that carries that. Is that all right with everyone?
Thanks, Mayor. Yep.
Okay. Now, we'll now move on to our next item of business this evening, which is our action items ready for vote. And we'll go to 10A, to consider for adoption Resolution 2022-016, authorizing the mayor to sign up to an interlocal cooperative agreement for public works, emergency management mutual aid between various local government agencies, service districts, and state agencies, Pleasant Grove City, to provide a mutual public works assistance after a natural or man-made disaster, providing for an effective date. Director. Okay.
Sorry, I had to mute, which
Okay.
made me have to turn off my screen.
You're
All
on now.
right, so can everybody see my screen, mutual aid interlocal agreement?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, there are many agreements for different agencies that throughout the state. The Utah Warrant System has an agreement, the Utah Mutual Aid Agreement. Public Works has their own form of agreement that essentially allows us as public works agencies throughout the state to work together. Those that are part of what they call a mutual aid interlocal agreement can better share concerns, I guess, if there is an emergency situation, we can share resources as needed to be able to get those things done. And so that's important as far as what we need to do when we do have an emergency. If there's a big earthquake and we have a need in our community and someone up in Salt Lake can be able to fill that need, there's a value to be able to have this interlocal agreement already established, so we're not trying to determine the terms of that aid and what it means for them or what it means for us. And so essentially Utah Public Works Association has put together a mutual aid agreement that a large majority of all the cities in Utah County, Salt Lake counties, Davis counties, they're all members of this interlocal agreement for mutual aid. And essentially the purpose is in times of emergency, there's a method for reimbursement of costs. So that's cost of employment, employees, staff, as well as equipment, as well as materials, those different things. This is administered through the Emergency Management Committee, the Utah chapter of the American Public Works Association. And the agreement is between the agencies and not with APWA. So essentially all those members that have adopted this agreement, it's written in such a way that we're really just kind of contracted with each other with regards to the terms of this. It does require that we do perform at least one annual emergency exercise with our public works staff and the city in a year. So whether that's with shakeout or other different emergency exercises that are performed, it is committing us to be part of that, which is a good thing anyways for our community. Essentially the procedure of that, if there was a big thing and I had a need, essentially I would just contact another agency that's part of the mutual aid agreement and essentially ask them if they would or are able to respond with any equipment. Essentially that might, it does not create a duty to respond though in this agreement. Essentially it's, you may have needs that you have to address and it's kind of understood that if you've got to address those are your first priority. And it's in our excess that we may have available that we can then contribute and help other communities with their needs. Essentially the reimbursable expenses, the FEMA equipment rates are what we're going with. We could essentially create a full rate structure for all of our employees, all of our equipment, things of that nature, our materials, give this to the APWA Association as our documentation for what would be charged in the event that we use this mutual aid agreement, and then that would be valid. What others have found is that it's kind of hard to manage and maintain that. Year after year, there's things that change, equipment prices change, employees change, those different things. So one thing that we kind of decided here is that we would just use the FEMA equipment rates and the rates that they have already established, which are fairly known, and many of the communities are doing the same thing just because of the difficulty of maintaining them on a regular basis. If we had an emergency management group, like Salt Lake County, for example, they do their own rates because they've got people that are, that's their whole role, is doing emergency management for the county. So, and then as far as materials and supplies are compensated, insurance is just provided by each entity. And obviously the Government and Immunity Act still applies to each of us in our own communities. And then with regards to termination, really there's no terms there. If we felt like this was not in our best interest, we can terminate at any time without any cost. that's essentially the scope of what it is. I feel that this is a great thing for our community. We're probably one of the later ones actually adopting this. There are only a few left, as I understand it, that haven't adopted this as a guide for being able to, share resources and deal with emergency situations and have an agreement in place. And so that's our recommendation, is to approve that.
Okay, thank you, Marty. Is there any other questions for Marty?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, if not, I would ask for a motion on Resolution 2020-016.
Mayor, I make a motion for adoption of Resolution 2020-16, authorizing the mayor to sign an interlocal cooperative agreement for Public Works Emergency Management Mutual Aid between various local government agencies, service districts, and state agencies, and Pleasant Grove City to provide a mutual public works assistance after a natural or man-made disaster and providing for an effective date.
We have a motion from Councilmember Jensen. Do I have a
I'll
second?
second.
Second, we'll take from Councilmember Anderson. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Councilmember Anderson seconds that, and this will be a roll call vote. Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock,
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone,
Yes.
and Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to our next item, which is 10B, to consider for awarding a bid for the PRV project bid plus item number 6 of the additive alternate to Cody Ecker Construction in amount of $421,948 and authorize the mayor to sign the notice of award and sign the notice to proceed and the agreement upon receipt of and approval of the final contract documents. Director.
Yes, Mayor, Council, we've had an item on our budgets for PRV replacements. Maybe you'll remember last summer, last fall, that we had the issue with one of our PRVs. Just happens to be that was actually one of our newer PRVs. But in the way you look at those, though, the PRVs are fairly typical in most culinary water systems where you've got any elevation change in your community. We've got many of them. I don't know the exact number. It's probably in the 20+ range throughout our community, because as you come off the bench, you have to reduce that pressure down so somebody at the bottom of the hill is not getting 300 or 400 PSI of pressure at their home. Essentially, this project was to replace some of our aging infrastructure. This project removes 7 PRVs. It combines a couple of areas that we felt were critical, and the more we can get rid of, the better, but we don't always have that ability to do it just based on what residents are used to seeing as well as what pressures are doing. But in this situation, we've identified 7 PRV vaults that we can abandon if we replace them with 4 additional vaults here. What this does for us, we did get 6 bids on this project. The low bidder was Cody Ecker. We've worked with Cody. He's doing currently our filter project. He did the water line and 300 East project, has worked with us for many years. This is a great bid for us. As far as the cost, as you can see, it's significantly lower than some of the other contractors. You can see here as well as the additive alternate, which is to add 1 additional PRV, is being recommended to be awarded as well tonight. The total amount of the award with both options for Cody Ecker is $421,948. And so we are recommending to give both the base bid plus the additive alternate minus, we had one item here, item number 7, which is the epoxy paint, some of the PRV vaults, which helps with a lot of our corrosion and issues that way. Because of the cost of that, we didn't feel like it was in our best interest to include that with this project. And so we're awarding only bid item number 6 in the additive alternate, not bid item number 7. And that gives you the amount of the $421,948 as a total. So any questions, can answer those, but that's our recommendation.
Thank you, Marty. Is there any questions for him?
Nope.
Okay. If not, I would ask for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to award bid PRV project bid plus item 6 of the additive alternate to Cody Ecker Construction in the amount of $421,948, and authorize the mayor to sign a notice of award and to sign the notice to proceed and the agreement upon receipt and approval of the first contract document.
We have a motion by Councilmember Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Bullock. And we'll do a roll call on this. Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock,
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone,
Yes.
and Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. We'll go ahead and sign those documents and award those. Now, we'll now move on to our next item that is item 10C. Consider for awarding the bid for the 1300 West Road Improvement Project to Geneva Rock Products in the amount of $321,377.80 and authorize the mayor to sign a notice of award and to sign the notice to proceed and agreement upon receipt approval of the final contract documents. Director.
Mayor, Council, this project, just to give you an idea, I know that everybody would be interested in kind of what this project is. This is the reconstruction of 1300 West Proctor Lane between Pleasant Grove Boulevard and 100 South. And essentially, we've got the project here with McKay Christensen. Also moving forward, they've held their pre-construction meeting. That project is also participating in completing their frontage improvements on what they own, which is essentially from this boundary down through the existing improvements that are there. So the portion here and the portion on the north end are the responsibility of the McKay Christensen development as they move forward. So they'll be, of this cost here, we're finalizing, we just got this bid back yesterday as we're trying to rush through this, but we're estimating that their cost is between the $80,000 and $90,000 of this bid to be able to get their improvements in that are required on these frontages. The rest of the project will be reconstructing the entire road section, putting curb and gutter here along the Proctor property. There's other property owners there, but all relatives of the Proctor. And then we'll get the remaining curb, gutter, and sidewalk in on the east side of 1300 West. And so that's the scope of this project. This is where, with all of our multifamily housing that happens down this area, we do get probably a lot of calls on, in this area here and the north area below State Street. That's one of those areas that a lot of people call us on. And so we're glad to try to get this and done. It's been in the works for a little bit. We put it on hold to deal with this development, but we're excited to put this before you today. The bids, as you can see on this bid tabulation, we did receive 5 bids for this, and they were all pretty well close together, from $313,000 to $383,000. The low bidder was Geneva Rock. The engineer's opinion of cost was actually a little bit lower than this, as you'll see in the recommendation letter. It was about 18% lower than this. As I've looked at it, I just feel that there were maybe a little bit of optimism of where we felt that the contractors would come. And I think what I've come to realize here is that we've got a really good group of contractors that have given good bids, and that it would be in our best interest to go ahead and award this project for the low bidder to Geneva Rock. We've had great success with them in the past. They've done great work for the city, and this is a great project to get done. So any questions, can answer those, but that's the project that you're looking at.
That's great.
Any questions for Marty?
Diane is on mute.
Marty, could you just, no, you don't have to scroll down, but just zoom in just a little bit there for my old eyes.
It's pretty, there you go.
Thank you.
That was pretty small.
So Just to clarify as well, we are recommending, so the additive alternate was really to kind of just break out an option, something that we have to do with the Proctors to be able to get their frontage improvements done. So we kind of pulled that in as a separate item, just so we keep track of that. But really we're recommending the award of the base bid and the additive alternate, so.
Okay,
So if there's any other questions for Marty? If not, I would ask for a motion.
all right, I'd like to make a motion that we award the bid for the 1300 West Road Improvement Project and authorize the mayor to sign the notice of award and to sign the notice to proceed and the agreement upon receipt and approval of final contract documents.
We have a
Second.
motion from Councilmember Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Councilmember Lamone. We'll do a roll call vote again. So we'll start with Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone,
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock,
Yes.
and Councilmember Anderson.
Yes,
Okay, but thank you. Passes unanimously. We'll now move on to our action item number 10D, to consider for adoption resolution 2020-017, declaring a surplus the entirety of a parcel 14.0250203 and portions of two parcels of real property and a portion of parcel 14.250180, consisting of approximately 552 square feet, and a portion of parcel 14.0250179, and consisting of approximately 906 square feet, located approximately at 701 and 780 West State Road, Pleasant Grove, Utah County, Utah, providing for an effective date. Director.
Mayor and council, I'm going to talk about both of the items, D and E, together, as they're both on the same subject here. One is to surplus the properties, and the other is to sell them essentially to UDOT with the right-of-way contract. Essentially, the need for this project comes from the future widening plans from UDOT on State Street between 220 South in Pleasant Grove and 500 East in American Fork. As it comes to Pleasant Grove Boulevard, and this happens, I mean, these plans go all the way up, but this is, as you can see this date at the top, they also are about a year and a half old. They haven't done a lot of changes, but there's probably a few little modifications that have happened. But this gives you the idea of what's going to happen and what the impact will be to some of the improvements, and some of it is property that the city owns. So if we look here on the corner here by the clock tower, for example, I believe the pink line represents the new curb and gutter, whereas the green and blue lines represents the new sidewalk. And you can see that it's significantly further behind the existing improvements, and will have some slight impacts to the current landscaping and improvements that are already there. With that, the state has come and said, hey, you know, typically anything within a right of way, if they come in and do improvements, there's not, you know, we can relinquish that and turn that over to them. That gives them the responsibility to maintain and take care of the road improvements there. However, when you start getting outside of those right of ways and we have city impact to city facilities, then they actually do pay for the widening improvements. And so what this is to do is to pay for the additional right-of-way needed beyond what is currently there, and then dedicating the entire right-of-way over to the limits that we'll discuss. And so then at that point, then UDOT will be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of a section of Pleasant Grove Boulevard based on what is being given. Let me pull over another map that describes what's in this contract. I think a little bit better. So there are 3 parcels that we're surplusing tonight. You can see the orange parcel here is labeled as 1425-179. It extends to the boundary of the red and comes around. The red parcel here is this 25203 parcel number from Utah County. And then the little blue parcel down here is a 250180. So those are the three parcels that are being discussed. The idea is that we're essentially dedicating as a little bit more of the right of way to UDOT, and they're paying us for that. I think you have all the information on that. Looks like essentially those parcels now within the shaded green area would be what we're dedicating. The shaded blue area down here is what we're dedicating, and then the shaded purple area up there is what's being dedicated. And so that's the extent of what we're doing with those agreements. And hopefully that is clear, but let me know if there's any questions on that.
Any questions for Marty?
Nope.
Anybody? Okay, if not, I would ask for a motion for resolution 2020-017.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2020-017, declaring as surplus portions of two parcels of real property located approximately 701 and 780 West State Road, Pleasant Grove, Utah, and providing for an effective date.
We have a
Second.
motion by Councilmember Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Councilmember Anderson. And this will be a roll call again, as usual. Councilmember Anderson. Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Bullock.
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone.
Yes.
And Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. We'll now move on to our last item this evening on our action items, action item 10E, consider for adoption resolution 2020-018, authorizing the mayor to sign an offer to purchase the right-of-way and right-of-way contract with the Utah Department of Transportation regarding three parcels of property, number 14025-0179, 14025-0203, and number 14025-0180, located approximately 780 and 701 West State Street for the purpose of widening and the related highway improvements to the State Street and providing for an effective date. Director.
And Mayor, these are just the contract documents. So the first one is a surplus. These are the contract documents to actually sell it to UDOT. So those are kind of both intertwined. I kind of presented them together.
Okay. So we have that. So I will now, if there's no other questions, ask for a motion on resolution number 2020-017.
Mayor, I'll just follow that up. I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2020-018, authorizing the mayor to sign an offer to purchase right-of-way and right-of-way contract with the Utah Department of Transportation regarding two parcels of property located at 780 and 701 West State and providing for the purpose of widening and other related highway improvements to State Street and providing for an effective date.
And I'll make a correction on that. It's 2020-018.
Yeah, did I say
Well,
that wrong?
I think I did 017 before there, so.
Okay,
So
yeah,
that's clear.
2020-018.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilmember Jensen. This will be a roll call vote now. We'll go the other way. Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone.
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen.
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock.
Yes.
And Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. That takes care of all those pieces of property.
Mayor, if we can, let's, before we do our department reports, let's revisit our public hearing item.
Okay. Let's do that. We'll open back up our public hearing item. We brought it back to the council. And before we go to a vote on that, what does the council want to do?
Well,
Could Daniel,
Just a
Yeah,
minute,
was there a
council
public
member, let's go with council member Williams.
Well, was there any public comment?
Yeah, you have any other comment? What is your thing as being one of the council members? How do you want to approach our?
Well, did we have any public comments on YouTube?
There was only one comment on YouTube that was just a general
Oh, yeah.
comment, not in regards to the public hearing.
Okay.
Okay. Daniel, can you put that language back up on the board?
Thank you.
Can you guys see it?
Yeah. So my feeling is, as I've thought and talked and thought some more, I think I like the elimination of E, the waiver of protest required. So I'm inclined to go that way. On 7, it's a change. Where staff is recommending a change, the planning commission went against that recommendation. I could probably go either way, quite frankly, whether we want it to be, if you're in the vicinity of 300 feet, then we're going to require, or if it's just adjacent. I'm probably okay. I'd like to hear maybe Daniel's thought process on the language change, and then let's call for a motion.
Okay, so I'm gonna call on that a little bit more on Marty. I think, like I said, we work on this together, and I don't know if Marty, would you like to give your comments about how we come up with this?
Yeah, let me jump in. I don't know if you remember, we did talk about this a couple months ago when we were in the middle of a particular family that was looking at trying to do their street improvements.
Right.
Feedback we got from the council at that time was, will you give us options to consider to loosen this up? So that's why we came up with number 7. The staff is not, this isn't like this hard recommendation that this is what we need to do. This is really a policy call on our city council, whether you want it to make it more stringent or less stringent. That's all it is. It's just an option for you guys.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Daniel. Well,
Go ahead, Marty.
Scott, exactly, we kind of looked and said, okay, if we want to make this less stringent, we can go from 0 requirements if you have a building permit to where we're at today, which is 700 square foot and 300 feet exceptions. What we said is kind of an in-between level would be to say, if we go with just curb and gutters or just those improvements that would be directly adjacent to existing improvements, would provide a value to the city. Yes, it extends existing improvements further. It's a little bit easier typically to deal with the drainage because you're already dealing with it at the end of that curb. And I deal with these all the time. On every building permit that comes in, we look at whether or not this is an issue. And our response to that, it's really difficult when you have mid-block curb, gutter, and sidewalk to install. Does it provide a value? Yes, value to the property, value to the citizens. It does provide a little bit of additional safety. However, there are difficulties of having a mid-block curb, gutter, and sidewalk. We have to deal with the drainage. And that's always an added thing that comes into that. And so I think if you want to go with where we're at today, great. We're willing to support that. If you want to go midway, we're saying that there's some value of at least getting curb, gutter, and sidewalks installed when there's directly adjacent improvements, because I can deal with the drainage better. It's a connected sidewalk to something else. It does extend improvements. And so this is kind of a mid option. The other option would be to say, just throw the whole thing away and let's not have any requirements with regards to a building permit. Obviously for new homes, new commercial development, those things are kind of not even considered. But This is for, really for remodels that we have to look at this. So this is what our recommendation is as a mid option for you guys to consider.
But Marty, you actually probably like the original language better.
You know, we dealt with that before. We have a very difficult time with this. With every building permit that we deal with this, there is always heartache and difficulty trying to negotiate what the bond amount is, when they, you know, how they post that, because it doesn't really work with their construction funding. You know, there's all of these things that we deal with every one of these. And I know Brent is saying, well, there are no hard stats. And I fully agree. We haven't been keeping track of that. But the reality is this is an ongoing difficult discussion for staff to say, sorry, you fit this role. We can't give you an exception because of the ordinance. Therefore, here's your extra $30,000 bond or $25,000 bond. I don't have a way to give you an exception because you don't meet the rule. It's a difficult discussion every time. Now, is there a value to the community to have it? In certain situations, it's absolutely a value. Are we going to get connected sidewalks with it? Absolutely not. Well, maybe in 100 years or two. And so what is the purpose of it? Well, it creates a little bit going in. And I think at some point, the city is just going to have to try to determine how do we get connected, you know, improvements. And it's not going to be by this likely. And like Scott said, there's other ways to do that. I would like to say one thing. So Scott's talking about an option for special improvement assessment areas. And I've dealt with a number of them. And there is a definite large cost that has to be borne by the city in the event of a special assessment area. They typically do not have to pay for all of their widening expenses in that scenario. They have to pay for their curb, gutter, and sidewalk expenses and tie-in stuff, but the stuff in the right-of-way typically is not included in their cost. Therefore, if we approve a SAA, then we are also taking money out of the streets budget to do that project to widen that road. Is that a value? Yes. Do we have money right now to do that? Absolutely not. We don't have money to deal with our current roads. And so I think that's an option that we can consider on a case-by-case basis, but I don't think we're going to get a flood of SAAs. But if there were a community, we're going to have to look at the value of that and say, can the city bear $100,000 of cost to widen the road so you can put in your improvements? It's going to be a case-by-case basis. So I think that's important to understand as well.
I appreciate that, Marty. That's great. Well, yeah, that answers my question, and I'm okay making a motion, Mayor.
Well, let's see if there's any other questions. Anybody got any questions before we do a motion?
Just remind me, was the planning commission verbiage the red?
No.
No,
The
that's
red
what
one is the
staff.
Yeah, so Diana, if we just keep the ordinance as written, that is the 300 feet. That is the recommendation of the planning commission. And that's probably what I would recommend we just keep.
Why?
Well, because in my opinion, there's not a need to change. We loosened it up with E, with the waiver of protest required. We're going to eliminate that. I think that's a fair fair request.
I agree.
And so, for example, if there's curb and gutter in my neighborhood, and I do an addition, not a remodel, but an addition over 700 feet, I'm improving my property to the point where I'm improving my property and I'm improving the neighborhood. And at that point, if there's not an exception, given the current exception possibilities, I would be required to do that. I think that's a fair trade and believe that's probably the best interest of our city.
So are we gonna get sidewalks? So for me, it is a safe thing. And I would like it to happen faster than the 100 and 200 years. So which one is gonna get us there faster?
Well, same language. Keep the language as written. Remove the red line.
Okay.
I'm going to give you my thoughts. Diana and I both have been on planning commission, and Peter's right. The 200 years or 150 years, we both live in old downtown. And I just don't see this happening, and I haven't seen it really happening to this scope. It's just not happening. If I'm gonna add on 701 feet, a square feet to my house, a lot of people, like Marty has said, have come in and had issues with the additional $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 onto their bond. So we're not seeing a big influx of this. And so we have to really take a look at this, the red line that's been added to this, that accommodates and gives, because if my neighbors both don't have sidewalks next to me, that gives me a potential opportunity not to spend that money. Correct, Marty?
Yes, so if they don't have improvements, then you would not be required, you'd be given the exception and therefore would not have to put those improvements in.
Unless it causes a flood.
Right, you're just not gonna see that, and I think the numbers bore that out when we saw the numbers Marty gave us on where the sidewalks have been completed and where we're missing curb, gutter, and sidewalk is there's a large portion in our older part of the city that's just, it's not gonna happen when these people add onto their homes.
Yeah, and that's exactly right, Eric. And that's why I believe we don't need to change the ordinance. Let's don't change that, right? If there is an exception.
You're not gonna see any improvements then. That's what I'm saying, is either way, you're not gonna see improvements, I guess. If you keep it the same, then we stay status quo.
Well, it's gonna be even worse if we do it adjacent. Right, that means if two houses down does curb and gutter, I'm not, and I do an addition over 700 feet, I wouldn't be required.
You just haven't seen it yet, though. You're just not seeing a lot of that in old downtown.
Yeah, that's true, but to be a little bit more strict, I say we keep the language the same.
Can you see it right there, what I just did?
Yep.
Okay.
So Dan, you're saying, now you're saying planning commission recommended the red line words and staff is in the 300 feet.
This is the staff right there. And this is planning commission.
So Daniel, what's the process? So it says in D, the following property circumstances may qualify for an exemption. So they just come in, they have an application they fill out, like let's say they're doing a remodel on their kitchen or something. Do they just come in and fill that out since it's an interior remodel?
Yeah, so you should know what happens is they submit for a building permit. And then when they submit for the building permit, we start checking and we see if it triggers one of the requirements for them to, if it triggers, for them to do it. And if they do it, then we'll send them to the engineering department and then they work with them for the exceptions. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Marty, Scott, Daniel, how many special improvement districts have we actually done as a city and done as a block?
In 1923, in the entire downtown area.
The latest one that we had was for 180 West, where they did sewer and curb and gutter and sidewalk. So that was driven more by a sewer line in that road than it was curb, gutter, sidewalk. And that one ended, I think, like in 2012 or 13.
So there was no sidewalk on 180 West that was installed. I believe it was just curb.
Oh, sorry, yeah, curb and sewer, right?
We did one on on Center Street at one point as well. We looked at one on 1100 North. I did that, back in 2007. It never went forward because the project didn't go forward. But that was an example of, hey, we can involve the community, get these frontage improvements in. We're already doing a road project. Let's do a special assessment area so we can help them finance their curb, gutter, and sidewalk as we're doing the project. But it didn't go forward because the project didn't move forward. But that would be a good example maybe of when that would happen, or if there was just an ability to come in and ask for them. So.
Okay. I'll just chime in because I don't have a vote here, so I don't have a dog in the fight here. But anyway, I do agree with the staff's recommendation because I've seen where this cookie cutter stuff of 300 feet down the road, there's another house with it, and then we don't have any sidewalk, and I just don't see the reason on that. But because it'll just be that way for years and years. And, but like I say, it does get us some sidewalk, especially in the rural areas is where you really see this come into play. So anyway, with that, I would, if there's any other discussion, I'd ask for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-4, amending city code section 1015-41, street frontage improvements, adjusting the threshold requirements for when the city frontage improvements are required, the criteria for approving exceptions, and modifying the current requirements for the waiver of protest and providing for an effective date, which is the elimination of E and the recommendation of staff, the staff's language on 7.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Williams. Do I have a second?
I'd second that.
And a second by Councilmember Bullock. This will be a roll call vote, and we'll start with Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock.
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone.
Yes.
And Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. And that concludes our voting business this evening, and we'll move on to the rest of our meeting this evening, which we will now move on to our discussions of our staff. And let's start with our library. You want to?
Yeah, it just took me a second to unmute. Can you see me?
Yeah, we see you, Sherry.
Okay. Library is doing pretty well. We started our curbside pickup on Thursday. And that day we only had 16 people come, but we hadn't really advertised it yet. And we did it again yesterday, and we had 36 people come with 204 items total. That's in 3 hours. So, and again, still hadn't been advertised a whole lot yet. And it's going in the city newsletter, so I imagine it's going to pick up a lot. And it takes a little while to go find 204 items, and I imagine it'll at least double. So it's a nice service that we're able to do. I have limited number of staff who are willing to come in and do it, but that's a different issue. As long as we keep the ones we have, we'll be fine. And the story time just started, and it's really cute. I told them they have to do the next one 6 feet apart because they're next to each other doing a puppet show. So they're going to make that part of the story time is saying, we're 6 feet apart because we care about each other or something like that.
Oh, how cute.
So
how many views do you have?
Yeah, I'll have to look. So anyway, they did a really good job. It was Stacy.
It was so cute.
You watched it? Okay.
Yes. I think there were like 87, 88 people that were watching it live.
Oh, nice.
That's
so
cool.
Stacy Martineau and Valerie Jensen, Eric's wife, were the two who did it. And they plan to keep doing it as long as we're closed.
275 years.
Thank you, Eric.
Can you
not bad, since we just barely put it up yesterday. Not bad at all.
And can you imagine putting 275 kids in that room watching it?
No, that's better than we would have gotten in that time in person. So yeah, that's nice. Maybe we should continue to broadcast them.
Yes.
I absolutely agree.
For those people who can't make it in. So we're doing things. Our staff so far have stayed pretty busy, actually. We have a lot of projects going on. How long that'll last, I don't know. But as of right now, most of the staff is pretty occupied. But, you know, if this goes into June or July, we clearly won't have enough to do at that point. And probably sooner, but spirits are pretty good, and we're just trying to be productive. Oh, and Linda Butler too has started writing a homeschoolers lesson. Since she did that with her own kids and studied it a lot. So she thought, well, while everybody's got their kids at home, she would write up lessons that you can do away from screens. So outdoor lessons, like looking at worms and things like that. So she's putting those on our website. So I think that's a nice thing too. And that's it.
Okay. Hold it. Terry has more to say. They have the Instagram account now.
Oh, this is true. We now have a library Instagram account. Thanks to Eric for setting it up for us.
Thanks, Eric.
And I was thinking it would be fun to have Simon, who is the main puppet. It's Melinda, excuse me. Melinda made the puppet before she left and called him Simon. So I was thinking he could be our library mascot and
Cute.
or be in a lot of the photos on Instagram. So,
Cute.
so does it look dark where I am?
A little dark.
I can't see. I never turned on the lights, and in order to turn on my office light, I would have to go downstairs and turn on the building lights. So sorry if it's dark.
It's all right. You look great.
And that's it.
Okay. Thank you. We'll carry on. Keep us informed how your curbside book stuff
Okay, I will.
continues to grow, okay?
Yes.
And let's move to our rec center. Tyler, you're kind of all boxed in up there. What can you tell us? What's going on?
I am sitting in a big empty rec center in my office right now. It's hard because it's usually packed with people. So anyways, I'm in my office. Just a couple of things I mentioned right when we closed. We really just took the cleaning and making sure that was just top notch around here, and looking, like I said, in August when we usually do our cleaning, we looked at all those projects that we usually do and accomplished a lot that we were able to do in these last 2 weeks. Along the same lines, with Sherry on the library, we've been doing our fitness classes online. We've gone in lots of different ways with that. We first had them coming down here, but then as the social distancing became more of a thing and we wanted to keep our staff safe, they started doing it from home, and they've been doing awesome, just doing in their living rooms and just doing lots of different through YouTube, through Instagram, through Zoom. They've just really made that available in a lot of different spaces. So, and we're getting good response from the public on a lot of those things. So that's been a good thing for us. And then as far as staff here, it's all about when we get going again. We've made plans for the 2 weeks. Initially, when we get going after these 2 weeks, let's do these programs. And then that doesn't happen. And then we just kind of keep making these plans. What programs can we do in these next 2 weeks when we open up again? So it's just a lot of the unknown and the uncertainty that's making a lot of people anxious and up here of just when we can get going and get back with everyone. So that's been a lot. Our Funshine preschool, they are going to be sending out to everyone that they'll be done for the year. They're doing one last hurrah this week where they're going to have a pickup of all the curriculum for the rest of the year. We're giving that to all the students with their graduation certificate and a little graduation gift, and just to say bye from a distance to their teachers. And kind of a sad way to end it, but they just wanted to see one last time to wave to their kids. And so that's a lot of what's going on. So any questions on anything?
You've got some good instructors doing some really good online fitness classes, so that's good.
it's been really cool to have them doing that because these people love their instructors. So to have their faces leading them, that's been pretty good. So
Thanks, Tyler, for your leadership there.
okay, thank you guys.
Okay, not anything else? Let's talk about our parks. Dion?
Well, it's good weather today.
Wow. That's, which park are you in right now?
Well, one in St. George because its grass is growing really good. But no, custodial, I'll just kind of go through the different departments. They've been real busy doing some big projects. They did the rec center floor last week. They are doing the seniors kitchen this next week and their dining area. As far as Bill goes, he's just been running around crazy like usual. The cemetery, we actually have split up Dusty and Dave a little bit. One office in each area, each end of the shop out there, just to kind of keep them separated a little bit. Funerals, we're still kicking them out. It's kind of interesting to see when you only have 10 to 20 people show up to a funeral. It's kind of interesting. Parks and trails, they're busy. It's kind of crazy how busy they've become and a lot of work, but we've kind of been having to shift our schedule around a little bit just because of the amount of the people that are in the parks and on the trails each day. So we're getting a lot of things done in those areas first thing in the morning and then kind of backing out to keep our staff safe. But everything's going good. We started mowing this week, so it has begun.
Okay, anything for?
Dion, where are we at with the medians, getting those cleaned up for spring?
They were supposed to be in there the end of March, so I haven't been down in that area of town the last couple of weeks, but I'll check with the guys in the morning and see what they know.
So is it the contractor doing it or the parks guys or both?
It's the contract, well, both. We've got out our pre-emergent. We've been spraying quite a bit, but the contractor was supposed to be in there by the end of this month. That was before all of this started, so they may be delayed a little bit.
And how come?
I would imagine that, 2 or 3 people, 5 people in a truck, whatever. I don't know. They just may be delayed. I know a lot of our suppliers, a lot of the people that are doing the same things we are, they're starting to get a little bit backed up in some of the stuff that they're doing.
Okay, but you can check in with the contractor just to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's probably
Okay,
part of
awesome.
it, the social distancing.
Dion, have you seen anyone trying to get into the park since you've roped them off?
Yeah, they're in them all the time. And
Oh, really?
yeah, mostly at Discovery. They just jump the fence. We have everything caution taped off, but staff, they'll just remind them. Generally, when they pull in, it's kids. So generally, when the vehicle pulls in, they just kind of scatter. But they're in. So
Okay,
the trails are unbelievable.
like just packed?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
when we get our numbers for March, I guarantee it will be the heaviest used since we've opened Murdoch. And even today, I was up on Valley Vista for about 3 hours, and there was I was on a downhill section. There was probably 30 bikes came past me. It's just crazy busy. At the Discovery Park, they're using the pavilions. Large groups of people are over in the pavilions.
Oh.
Yeah, they get together in the parks, and even on the trail, you'll see 10, 15 people walking the trail together, and they just don't do the social distancing.
So as far as our parks are concerned, we're not renting pavilions to groups. This is people just showing up and doing their thing.
Right.
And our stance has been, we'll remind people not to, but we're not arresting people. We're not citing people. We're just asking people to follow what the governor said.
Yeah.
Dion, if we're seeing maybe some safety hazards on the canal where some asphalt needs to be repaired or cracks, things like that, do we just contact you and you contact the county, or how does that work?
Yeah, I've physically walked all of Murdoch through Pleasant Grove. There's a couple small
maybe 50-cent piece holes that I've noticed and a couple cracks, but overall, the trail condition is really good on the Murdoch.
Yeah, for the most part it is. It's really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just call me and I can get ahold of the county.
Okay.
Anything else for Dion? Okay, if not, we'll move on to our chiefs. Chief Roberts.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you now.
Yeah,
Can you see me?
yes.
All right, I'll just give you a quick rundown of how we're running operationally. We locked our building down, so it's only employees in. We stopped doing fingerprints and tours and things like that. Any office personnel that can work from home are doing so. Obviously, we have to have the phone answerers and the records and people like that here. Our patrol divisions have been split into 2 major shifts, day and night. Those 2 shifts have been split into 2 other shifts. So we have 4 separate shifts, and none of those 4 shifts cross with each other. So they're trying to stop cross-contamination. The nature of our business, the guys have to work together as far as calls. We've seen a rise in domestic violence calls, obviously. So, when they go out to the calls, they have to work together for officer safety reasons. But we've asked them to try to do as much work as they can from their cars and handle as much work on their telephones as they can. As far as our detectives go, we have one detective that lives in town. He's working from home because his wife is struggling with cancer pretty bad and trying to keep her immune system as safe as possible. The rest of them, we just kind of stuck in offices we've had throughout the building, trying to keep the social distancing as much as we can. So it seems to be working well so far. The spirits of the guys are good and they're just doing their job. A couple of side notes, the National Council for Home and Safety and Security listed Pleasant Grove City as the 9th safest city in Utah, so that was a good thing to hear. Central Dispatch contacted me last week. They are on a total lockdown. They've split their crew up into a couple of teams as well, and they're trying to do the same thing. It's kind of the same thing. If they get one person down, it brings their whole team down. So they're separating. So they're going to use the space they leased from us for a safe center. So they're going to be using it a lot more than they originally anticipated. So we'll see some of their dispatching teams running the north end of the county through the spot here in our building. So that'll be good to see. And lastly, I got Officer Martin stopped by my house over the weekend and advised me he's accepting a job with South Salt Lake. So we're going to be losing him in the next couple of weeks. So that's unfortunate, but nature of the beast at this time.
So Chief, there were 2 county, 2, agents from the county sheriff department that tested positive. Do you know if we've had any interaction or?
They haven't released any information other than anybody that's cross-contaminated with them has been contacted by the health department.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything else. If I hear any information, I can let you know though.
Okay.
Anything else for Chief? Thanks, Chief. We appreciate all you. And you guys got a tough job going on there, okay? So, Chief Thomas.
All right, Mayor and Council, are you there?
We're here.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, it's nice to be with you from a distance. This is kind of interesting. It's funny that you can be so close and be so far away. Things are going well for us. We're absolutely protecting ourselves. We have some very stringent guidelines in place so that we can make sure that all of our people stay healthy. We have a little bit of an uptick in call volume that we're seeing. Mostly just kind of sick people who just aren't sure what they have. And so we're seeing a little bit of that. A lot of those we're treating from the doorstep. On the other side of things, we've actually had a little bit of an uptick in our employees being sick. If they're sick, if they have a cough, if anything's going on, then they're staying away. And so that's kind of creating some hardships and some expenses as we try to fill the positions that are open. One of the things that we've had, we've really enjoyed the change in dispatch. Central has really been an awesome dispatch, and it was a good move for us.
But what it does is it makes the automatic part of what we do quicker and literally more automatic. And so we have some challenges with making sure that we have units available to take those calls, which is kind of an interesting thing. Let's see what else. The only other thing that I've got is that I have 2 employees that have at another job site have worked on known COVID-19 patients. Our attitude is if they are protected with their PPE, then we don't consider it an exposure. And so we don't isolate them, and we still let them come to work, but we watch them really close. And we put them all on their best behavior to make sure that they let us know if there's any symptoms or anything that kind of arise from that. But other than that, we're doing really good.
So are you guys checking like for fevers or anything like that when you come into work, or?
No, we've been doing that for 2 weeks. So we actually have a completed exam form that we complete that includes the temperature. And we've been doing that for 2 weeks. So far, we haven't had to send anyone home. Okay. They've all been healthy when they've come, but we have a long record of that. So we're covering that base.
That's great, Chief.
Anything else for the chief? Hey, thank you. Well, it's good to know that you guys are there for us. So it's because life still goes on besides this. So there's going to be people that need your help. So anyway, all right. Daniel, have you got anything else for us tonight? Cardenas.
Yes, Mayor. Actually, let me see. I'm gonna share an image again. So
if it has to do with 300 feet, we're not taking it.
Can you guys see that one? Oh, sorry. There we go. So, and now my computer just froze. Just what I needed. But let's see if I can bring it back.
Has 300 in it.
There you go. So staff was approached by Atlas Tower in regarding to the possibility of to install a communications cell phone tower, a cell phone antenna at the Veterans Memorial Park. So I've been working with the, there we go. I've been working with the representative of Atlas Towers, and I mean, our code right now already has regulations for cell phone towers, and it has setbacks from residential zones. And the area that we came out with, it's the one that you guys can see right here in the red. So this is the, oh my gosh, the name skipped out of my, I was gonna say the-
Water slide?
The water slide, thank you very much. I was gonna say the toboggan, but that doesn't even exist. That's the word in Spanish, by the way, but yeah.
We would have known what toboggan meant.
So this is the area right there. Now, for the land use part, the planning commission will take care of it. I mean, the planning, because this is a conditional use. But the important thing is that in order to put an antenna there, of course, the city has to get in a contract with them, and that's something that the city council can only decide because this is public property. So the question is, how do you guys feel about this, and if we should go ahead and keep working with the applicant? Let's keep in mind that obviously there's going to be a type of a revenue that we're going to get from the rent of the space. If we decide not to do it right there, the applicant can just decide and go across the fence and go into the school district and use their property, and we will not get any money. But I think this an option, and this a request from Atlas Tower. I've been working with him a little bit, but we don't want to go any further if the city council has any questions or any concerns about this situation.
Sorry, go ahead, Diana.
How tall?
Based on that area, it will be about 100 feet. So hey, Daniel, so question, I've got a little bit of experience on this. So, a lot of times they'll come in and they'll camouflage it, right? Or they'll make it as a tree, or in my case, in those discussions, it was a palm tree. Is there any those type of discussions to
Yes.
make it as a tree?
Yes, yes. So we have actually a couple of designs that we've been working on it. We have the design of a tree. Actually, I took the guy to Provo because Provo has one.
Correct.
Yep. But I mean, I took him there to see what we don't want. I think that tree looks hideous. So we were working on of a better tree.
Some of them look really bad.
So there's the option of that. There's also the option of coming out with a tower. I mean, with a clock tower. They have different designs, and we've been exploring those situations, but we don't want to get any further without asking the city council if this is something that is that you guys will entertain.
Yeah. Do you know what the revenue potential could be, Daniel?
I'm gonna ask Scott about that. I don't know if he or
Yeah,
Scott.
generally speaking, $1,500 to $2,000 a month.
All right.
I mean, I'd be open looking at different designs. I do think that's a good location because really it's only going to be visible. I mean, the pool's, like 3 or 4 months out of the year. So I do think that's a good location, but I want to see some designs. I like the clock tower idea, but I also don't want it to be super annoying. So if we can see some designs, I'd be open to looking at designs.
Yeah, I like the idea, Daniel. I think that's a good revenue stream, and as long as it looks right, I think you absolutely proceed. Good work.
I'm more interested in what the base looks like as opposed to the.
Yeah, that's very nice.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
This is one. This is the tower, the clock tower. Obviously, they have different colors and different styles. I mean, that one was great. Let's see, we can see one in kind of like brown right there. Of course, that's a little more expensive. That what they also have thought about some trees. Let me show you one that still looks, of course, looks fake. They haven't been able to come up with something that looks exactly like a real tree, but you guys can see that one right there. Of course, the fence and those type of things will. That's part of the planning commission. I mean, it's a conditional use, so the planning commission will look into it. In my opinion, I really like the clock tower, but I don't know. I mean, they have.
No, I think you're right.
Do you guys give us the go ahead and start working on this?
I like that. So, and Daniel, I'm assuming it's a functional clock tower, right? Like it's not just for aesthetics, it really works.
Oh, of course, yeah, it does work, yeah.
Okay. It actually makes sense by the pool. I mean, there's a lot of times, people are waiting to be picked up at the pool. I mean, I think it would actually benefit patrons, so I like it.
Except for kids can't read a face clock anymore.
Well, that's true. They might have to make it digital.
Exactly. You'll be playing pickleball and then look it up and checking the time.
The kids are like, I have no idea what time it is.
Yeah.
So I guess Tina right now is working on reviewing the contract, and I'm working with the applicant in regards to the setbacks, possible submittal and things like that. So, okay.
Hey, Daniel, let's make sure they work on, I really dislike that up to the Discovery Park, where it's not enclosed, and it's just, they just got the cabinets hanging out there over over a fencing on, not fencing, but just a cover on the top there. So make sure that all their electronic equipment's all enclosed, so it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Yes, Mayor. So, like I said, it's a conditional use, so it will only be approved if it meets all conditions that we'll establish with the planning commission in regards to aesthetics. I guess at this point, aesthetics is going to be very important. How's it going to look? If it's going to match with what we have in the area? And I mean, if we're lucky, maybe we can put the water slide all the way from there. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Daniel, I agree with the mayor. I mean, one of the things that we have had issues with at the cell towers out at the Discovery Park is the maintenance and the upkeep. And I remember last summer or the summer before where you could see the weeds growing 3 and 4 feet high through the chain link fence. And so we need to make sure that the aesthetics are a little bit tighter than what we've done out there in order to make sure that we're not creating another weed pile.
That would be good. I mean, we'll have two mechanisms to get to that. I mean, number one would be through the conditional use. Number two, we can even include things like that in our contract. So we'll make sure that happens.
And I don't want a cheap metal base. I mean, let's make the base actually look like it's part of the Veterans Park.
Okay. All right. Well, like I said, we'll work on different designs, and then we'll have the planning commission take a look at this. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Daniel.
My pleasure.
Anything else for Daniel?
No, boss, that's what I had. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Marty, you got anything else for us tonight? You've been a big part of our show here tonight.
Yeah, sorry, there's a few more things that we wanted to talk about tonight. One of the things, just kind of an update quickly on staff, we have going on our second week now with our water department being split into two different.
Hey, Marty, turn on your video.
Okay, fine. Sorry about that. I hit the button. As far as our staff though, the water department, they're working 3 days each on each group. So they're working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So far, first week was good. As far as being effective and getting things done, we've had a couple of people that have been sick, just in a got to be cautious type of a thing, and so they've been taking those precautions, and we're still, we're only 5 in one group and 4 in the other, and so they're pretty small groups, but they're being effective and are able to get things done and take care of business as needed there, and I think that process is working good, and I feel like it does provide some added value for that protection. So. 2 other items to discuss are Battle Creek Canyon with our filter project. And this is something that we've known ever since we started the project, that eventually we're going to need to go up Battle Creek Canyon and dig out the area where there used to be a little pond and replace that diversion structure. And it's going to require a little bit of closure for a couple of weeks to do that. And as you know, it's April 1st tomorrow. Irrigation season starts April 15th. For us, it's May 1st as far as the PI system, but all of that's coming ahead here. Right now, we've got one issue that we're trying to resolve with regards to the stream alteration permit with the Army Corps of Engineers. They've indicated maybe some historical issues here, but we think we've got it all resolved. That is good, and they've signed off on that permit. And essentially the Forest Service is going to shut down the canyon for 3 weeks to all, and I know it was kind of a soft closure before, but this is a hard closure. The trail, everything will be dug up while they put in some boxes and piping. And, the location of that is kind of where that pond used to be. If you've ever walked up to the falls, it's probably a good 300 yards down from the falls. And so there is probably, we didn't have an idea that everybody may be enjoying that a little bit more this year than in past years with the sickness and things going around. So it is what it is. I guess we have to postpone it. We hope not to. We hope to get this done this year, and it's going to take that time. I guess that 3-week window. The only thing I don't know right now is when we're going to get our go-ahead permit from the state on the stream alteration permit. It could be as early as next Wednesday to where the contractor is able to do it. It could be a week and a half to 2 weeks. And so we'll give as much notice as possible. We are working with the Forest Service as well to make sure that they are, putting the notice as well for the closure on their websites, and they're in support of this as well. And so we're currently on that process right now. So any questions? I know it's maybe not the best timing, but at the same time, we do have to get this thing done in order to get the project done. And not, I guess, if we push it to the fall, then we've got expenses of extending the project and additional mobilizations and other things of that nature as well. So.
Okay. Anything else for Marty? Anybody got any questions for him?
One other item that on the spring cleanup, I thought we wanted to maybe touch bases really quick on that and where we're at with it. So right now it's still planned for April 17th through the 25th. So that's a Friday through the following Saturday. It'll be every day, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And unless, I guess, there comes out some stricter requirements by Utah County Health Department or the state, the governor saying, you know, we're in a restricted stay at home to where we shouldn't be leaving for any other reason than the necessary things, I would assume that that would mean that we would not hold our cleanup days if that were issued. Yeah, I think the question could be asked, are we going to be as effective in years past? Because we get a ton of questions. I mean, not a question, a ton of people based on work groups that are together, going through the neighborhoods and helping those that need some help. And so I think it's going to limit the effectiveness, but still be valuable because there are a lot of people that are working in their yards right now with the extra time off. They're doing remodel projects in their homes, things of that nature, to where those people could still be utilized. You know, I think there's still a value to it. Obviously, we need to have in place some employee safety measures with regards to just safe distancing and things of that nature, making sure we probably won't be able to be as helpful this year as in years past. We'll ask people to just leave stuff and we'll try to pick it up with the backhoe if it's heavy, for example, or you know, do as much as we can, but we need to keep our distance and keep our employees safe in that scenario. So that's kind of what we have on that. I guess any thoughts or concerns with that?
Marty. And I apologize. I guess you guys could hear me chewing.
Yes.
No, never mind. I'm sorry, guys. I'm hungry and I've had to go to the bathroom a couple of times. So I apologize. So I'm trying to like kill like 4 birds with 1 stone here. Okay, Marty.
Yes.
Do you feel that any of your employees would be at risk if we could continue the cleanup? Like, I know there's the concern with going around the neighborhoods and picking things up. When your employees, when they come through to talk to them or ask them questions, could they keep the 6 feet? And do they have to interact with the public really at all? Like, is that okay?
Again, we would implement some additional safety measures with regards to the 6 feet requirement, trying to work from a distance, maybe have additional signage up that really helps people understand which bins are supposed to go in. You know, again, our primary concern would be the safety of the employees as far as doing that. But I think that there is enough space that we could try to just keep things a little bit more separate. Maybe it's not as big of loads because we don't have the big work parties going, you know, and bringing in all the additional stuff that we typically deal with. I think, you know, there's probably a question we should ask ourselves whether or not maybe handing out another, you know, dump pass to the dump this year and saying that's, you know, if this goes away, or if we feel like that's a big enough safety concern, maybe rather than spending the money on all this dump time, you know, if we just said, hey, everybody, you can get 2 dump passes this year, or and then you can just take it right to the landfill, or you can take your green waste right to TSSD rather than. You
mean in place of the cleanup days or in addition to?
So I'm saying if we feel that there's a big enough concern with safety with our employees, and there's legitimate question there, then one other option would be for the city take that and offer, you know, for people to be able to go to the dump an additional time or something with their own loads rather than doing it at the pipe plant. So I'm just throwing out there as an option to be considered.
No, those are actually a good thought. What is the dump doing for? Are they closing down? Are they require, you know, any type of anything?
We got an email from them this past week. They are doing their best to stay open. They recognize that in some ways they're an essential service. They would stay open for the commercial and the residential drop off for sure, 100%. What they have contemplated is whether they will take citizen loads. Right now, they are planning on continuing to do those, but if they at some point feel that their employees will be at risk, that would be the first thing to go. So right now they're doing it. When they sent the email out, I responded and encouraged them to keep that going. I know a lot of people are doing yard work, yard improvements because they're stuck at the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And so and I wasn't the only one. There were other city managers that responded saying, please do what you can to keep this thing open. So with what Marty's saying, we can do this spring cleanup. It will just be different. It won't be probably as efficient and effective as what we've done. If our employees are the first priority, then it just might be, like I said, if there's a big load that somebody's just going to drop on the ground, and then we'll have to come in on the back end with a backhoe and kind of take care of things. I mean, there are ways that we can do that. And that might be the best way. I think our residents might benefit from that spring cleanup. We could consider doing less days instead of being open for a Friday through the next Saturday. We could potentially do a few less days. And if we really feel like we want to change things up, we could offer the additional dump pass. We're looking for feedback from you.
And that may be a good, just a thought, if our most effective days are the Thursday, Friday, Saturday type of days versus a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And, one way to kind of lessen the potential would be to, maybe we cut out at the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and just do a Thursday, Friday, Saturday option for that. So.
But wouldn't that, hold on, I'm thinking the opposite. Wouldn't we want to
consolidate it?
Yeah, well, wouldn't we want to have more time so that people could do it when, if we bring it in to only 2 or 3 days, more people can congregate, right?
And actually, Todd, to that, and of course, I want to keep the employees safe, but I'm thinking that even if we limited, one person, 2, 3 cars at a time, so that there wasn't, we were helping space them out. But I like the idea of, it's just going to be different. But I think that it's still a service, and I think we can still maintain our health and safety while we do it.
I think this could be as busy, if not busier.
Yeah.
Just because people are home to actually do the work and,
get
it prepped. And so Marty, if you're comfortable with your workers and everything, and we can leave it as scheduled. And then, like you said, I like the idea of possibly adding on, maybe let's see how it goes, and adding on another dump pass a little bit later on. I like that idea.
I'm good with that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, I would, if we do a full-blown city cleanup, I wouldn't recommend doing a second dump pass. That costs us quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we're gonna, it's either or in my mind, because there's a cost to do the cleanup and there's a cost to do the second dump pass. So if we can keep our spring cleanup as scheduled, then let's roll with that.
Marty?
Just very quickly though, how will we keep the employees safe, Marty?
So again, it's just going to be an overall emphasis on making sure that we're not up and personal with everybody dumping off. And so we're going to have to kind of work a little bit further away from the vehicles. We're going to be a little less helpful in those, we're going to have to ask the residents to make sure that they have the ability to at least dump their loads to where we can do them. If they're heavier, they may have to get them off their trailers by themselves so that we can then pick them up after that fact. So I think there's a few things that we can do to outline that. We can put up some more signage so people know where to dump, so we don't have to do so much coaching or, hey, you need to move over here. But I think we can, definitely the 6 feet is doable as far as keeping away from people, and then just overemphasizing the need for them to try to do most of the work, and then we can come in afterwards and finish that up. So
Marty, what was your thinking relative to the Sunday, leaving it open for Sunday? I suspect you're not going to have a lot of people on Sunday.
Yeah, Brent, I think over the years, we've always done one Sunday just because there are people that like to do that work on Sunday in the community. And so it just gives them an opportunity. It is a slower day as I've understood it, but it still is very, it's heavily used in most years. And so I would assume that there's still people that would take and make benefit of that day. So I think we would still recommend just do it. It's not ideal, but it works. So
I was just wondering because I was not aware that it's been done in the past.
It's been a while that it's been done, ever since I've been here for more than 5 years. So.
Okay.
And
Marty,
everybody,
do you
yeah, go
do
ahead.
you have masks and gloves Like, do you have sufficient?
I don't know that we're going to say all of our employees wear gloves as they are out, but we are not tucking anything medical gloves, and we're usually not in contact with people, as well as maintaining a safe distance if we're not in direct contact and getting into that area. So I don't know that we're looking at putting on an N95 mask or something of that nature. Maybe we need to consider that, but I hadn't thought we needed to go that far. If we can just maintain our separation and overemphasize doing that, it kind of gets in the way a little bit, I guess. But if we're going to be close and needing to do that, maybe that's an option to say, let's get in some PPE for everybody, and we can do it like we normally do. And I think that's probably over exaggerated there as well. I don't think we need to go to that level, but I think we can just maintain the separation and safety that we need there without all of that PPE need.
And maybe that can go out in some of the verbiage that, hey, we are trying to keep safe the employees, really stress that part of it so that when they're dropping off their stuff, I hope nobody's going to drop off anything contaminated.
Well, that's what I'm wondering if they should wear gloves.
That's what we were just talking about.
Like work gloves, like Diana was saying, if they even have just work gloves, not necessarily medical, but work gloves, then they can, and handling things that are coming right out of people's homes.
Yeah, I think that would be important to emphasize. Sometimes guys have melted on their head and they're okay with working with gloves. We'll emphasize that as well. But, I think we could be safe in doing.
You have anything else for us, Marty?
That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, Director Roy, let's see what screensaver you've got back in the back behind you there, if you're still there.
I'm in Hawaii.
Hey,
you see
I
this?
like the sunset. Hey, we lost you. What happened? Oh, there you are.
Hey,
Okay.
Denise, keep your clothes on.
I'm at the beach house.
Do you have anything, Denise, do you have anything for us?
Well, I think Scott could give you the rundown during our work session of what him and I have been working on the last week or so.
Yeah, thank you very much for your work you guys have been doing on that, both of you.
Thank you. So we'll get to talk with a lot of the directors the rest of the week. The other thing is the 90-day plan for admin. We actually have Christian who does our payroll. He worked from home this week to make sure that we could do payroll, worst case scenario from home. And then we've had a couple of other people. We've changed accounts payable. We're only doing that every other week for a while, just so we could rotate our groups for backup for accounts payable and payroll. And we have our doors shut, which we've had for about over a week, but they can contact Jody or Kathy. They're in customer service, and we also have an email available that they can email to set up an appointment if they need to, and I think that's been good. So a little bit of issue with our mail. The post office doesn't want to call the number, so we've had to go pick up our mail, but that hasn't been too bad, so we were just operating.
Okay, thank you. Our general counsel, Tina, what have you got for us? Are you there? We lost you?
Sorry, it took me a minute to click all the clickers. There we go.
Oh, there you go.
So I'm on the beach in the daytime while Denise is on the beach at night. The legal department is doing just fine. We have our social distancing in place. We've had it, this is the second week. Prosecutor works in his office with the door shut most of the time. I'm in my office and people are 6 feet away from the legal assistant. We're dealing with mostly moving all of our court hearings. The Supreme Court sent down another executive or another standing order based on their pandemic response plan. All traffic cases are now being continued to October the 1st or later, and all of the other cases are being continued to after June 1st. The only cases that we're handling are the ones that are mandatory protective order hearings and domestic violence cases, and those are all being held telephonically. So right now, there aren't any in-person hearings that are occurring. Josh has been spending quite a bit of time working with Judge Birch on developing a standing order for our court that complies with the same provisions that the Supreme Court's done. And so he's been working very meticulously on that this week. It's taken him quite a bit of time. One other thing that Denise didn't mention that she's been working on that I've been reviewing as well is the proposed refunding on the bonds. We've had quite a few emails and quite a few drafts floating back and forth between us all, bond counsel, and our financial advisors on the bond refunding. And then the other thing that I've been working on is COVID-19 responses. So Carla and I have a proposed policy that we're getting ready to put into place. And we'll talk to Scott about it tomorrow and then finalize it and get it posted for the employees because it goes into effect tomorrow. So if we have any questions, we want to make sure we have the information ready for them. That's about it.
Anybody have anything else for Tina?
No, thanks, Tina.
Don't get a suntan.
I'll try not to.
Okay.
Good work, Tina.
Good work. Now we'll go to our host this evening, Kyler, and we haven't seen his face yet because I've been using some of his audio on his computer here, so.
And I don't have a beautiful background in Hawaii. I'm here in the council chambers.
Yeah.
Just to go along with what Tina said, we are working on our policy. So the council's aware there are different rules for public employers. And so that's something that you need to be aware of, that our policies might not be the same as what you see in your workplace. And then just trying to continue to make sure that we're in compliance with that and the other laws that come out. And just as a side note, Mayor, we might want to make sure that we do have one public comment that we'll want to read before the end of the meeting.
Well, do you want to go ahead and read that to us now?
Yeah.
So it's part of our record here.
So, maybe.
Maybe.
We'll come back.
Okay.
I'm struggling with technology.
Okay.
So.
Well, you've done a pretty good job tonight. So anyway, kept me straight.
This is a big deal, Kyler. I mean, I don't know if we've definitely needed you tonight, and so our thanks as a council to you and enabling this virtual meeting where we can still meet, conduct the affairs of the city, and really without skipping a beat. So, Kyler, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Next week, I'll be on paternity leave, so we'll see if I'll come back in.
Oh, really? That's exciting.
Wait, did we have a child, or are we expecting a child?
We will have a child on the 7th, so.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Hope all goes well.
Okay. Well,
That's awesome.
Well, our last person, I think, this evening is, we'll give some time back to our city manager. Scott, what have you got for us? And also, would you review our April 14th city council meeting?
We're still in process on our April 14th meeting. There's not a whole lot. There is, we are going to have the discussion on providing for those that are double covered in insurance. I've talked to you about that in the last few weeks. So we'll have that policy crafted and presented to you for that. That will probably be the big item that we have. I want to share just an incredible thanks to our department heads for taking this stuff seriously and doing the 90-day plan and the things that we have protected our employees. Our social distancing here is really good. And we have contingency plan upon contingency plan that if we get somebody sick, we can still operate. And that's a credit to our department heads who have thought through this, thought what happens if so-and-so gets sick and how are we going to do this? We have so many things that we do that we have one person in the city that does them. And so we're working on our cross-training, working on all the different scenarios to make sure that we can stay operational. It has been very good for me to watch the response of our department heads and the response of our elected officials as we have entered into just a weird time. And to see how we are functioning. And just like Todd said, tonight doing this meeting and Kyler setting this up, Kyler's not an IT person, but Kyler has turned into an IT person and he did fantastic getting us set up and having us being able to do this meeting electronically so our public can watch us do the public business. And that's important that happens. I'm grateful. And Denise, and I'm going to single out a few. I mean, Tina and Kyler have been working super hard on this new policy on all the different things that are coming down from the Federal Department of Labor, and they keep updating the rules every day. And so they'll craft something and then it gets changed because rules are clarified and it's a moving target, but they're handling that fantastic. And Denise on the budget has come up with the things I presented, that's Denise. I was the one that presented it. That's Denise that's looking at this and figuring out the way that we can preserve jobs and preserve service. And so there are some extraordinary efforts going on. I'm just proud to be a part of this group and to be a part of the city and our staff, just our employees that are out, boots on the ground. They have responded well. I think the spirits are pretty good relative to what's going on. They are practicing their social distancing. We are trying to keep everybody safe and healthy as we continue to kind of plug along here. I went home for lunch today. I walked into my home and on my TV was Letitia Bishop, who is one of our fitness instructors that was doing a kids cardio, and I had 3 of my kids doing the kids cardio.
That's awesome.
My kids have been cooped up. They have not, just need to get outside more. They need to get more exercise, and I was just so glad. Now, I didn't join them. I didn't go that far. But it was good to see my kids being able to do that, and I thought, how cool, number one, that technology allows us to do that, and Letitia's doing this out of her home. And it was something that that's what makes our employees special, is that they are saying, we're going to do whatever we can to kind of get through this time. And if I need to do a fitness class at home, I'm going to do it one at home. So I want to express appreciation and thanks. I know a couple of weeks ago, as this started, I was sick and I had all these different feelings about this. And I want to express an actual love for you people. I don't want that to sound cheesy or weird, but I do love you. And we are awesome. We are doing a great job. So that's what I have to say. I appreciate all the efforts and let's keep it up.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, let's go with our council. Council Member Bullock. Brent, what do you have for us? Anything else tonight?
I don't have anything.
Okay. About Council Member Anderson.
Just quickly, and I second what Scott said. I am just very, very proud of how the city is just moving forward. The services are still continuing. And I also, I don't want any deaths in Pleasant Grove. I want to go through this whole thing and no staff, no resident gets it. I really, really honestly believe we can, if everybody just is smart, I think we can make it through this. I applaud the action everybody just really keeping in mind the safety of the residents and the staff. I've been home working for 2 weeks. I'm going crazy, but it warms my heart to be with you tonight. And I think this is the longest meeting we've had, and we're all at home.
Wow.
Anyway, thank you, everyone.
I'd have to let you know that Kyler has the ability to mute any of you. And he said, just give him the sign of this and he'd take care of it. But I restrained myself tonight. But anyway, it was all good conversation. But just so you know, we have that ability here. So Councilmember Jensen.
Just a few things. Coming from the business community, our small businesses are hurting, right? But the definition of a small business to me is that they find a way to overcome and persevere. And we had a conference call this morning with the Small Business Administration, with the area director. And our small businesses are amazing. The questions they asked, the things they're already on top of, things they're trying to do to overcome some of these challenges, it is amazing. Yes, they are struggling, but they're finding ways to succeed. And so if there's anything good to come out of this is the way to see that they're succeeding and overcoming a lot of these challenges. It's going to be tough for them. And then on the flip side, to all of us, to our employees, everyone, it's amazing. We are, to a certain degree, right, social animals, right? And it's hard to be cooped up in our houses or alone, but we find ways. This is one of the ways. I think a lot of us have had a lot of Zoom conferences over the last few weeks. And so I do look forward to, though, being with you in person very soon, hopefully.
Okay. Thanks, Eric. Councilmember Lamone. Sid, what have you got for us?
Just to know what everyone's saying, and super appreciative of Scott and just all the directors and your staff and for adapting to the needs that we have right now. And I think our community has been very receptive to everything. We're trying to make, everything safe and functional for them. And even with the shutdown, I didn't get a lot of complaints. I think people are very understanding right now. So just appreciate everything everyone's doing. And I know it's stressful at home for everyone too. Because we're all trying to work from home and have our families and school and with the kids and everything. So I just appreciate everyone with what you're giving at this time, because I know it's 110%. So thank you.
Okay, we're glad your son made it home too. So
yeah, he did.
Probably good to have him home here for a while.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So, Councilmember Williams.
No, it's been good. It's been a long time sitting in this chair. I don't think I came out to have lunch, I think, but hey, I can't say enough good things about what the city's doing. Scott, your leadership is exceptional. Keep it up. We absolutely love you right back. So let's just get through this together. I think, when people congregate at trailheads, quite frankly, that's got to end. We may need police reminders on that one, but the more we can just stay at home for the next month, as hard as that is, it'll make our life at day 31 a whole lot better. And so, we're doing all we can to stay home. Would urge everybody else to do all that they can to stay home, and that'd be obviously the directive from the city as well, is to follow the advice of Governor Herbert and President Trump, and let's just get through this. So, great leadership team here. Couldn't ask for better council and city staff. Thanks for all you're doing. I do have one question that I maybe want to take offline. I have had somebody request notary service, and not sure how to get that done. Scott, any advice there?
Yeah, we provide it here. They just need to call.
Okay. All right.
We have a little process. It's a little weird so that we can keep our social distancing, but we do have notary services here at City Hall.
That sounds great. Okay. And that's all, Mayor. Thanks for all you do, Mayor, and leading the city.
Well,
Yes, thank you.
Thank all of you.
Mayor.
I appreciate all of you and what we do. And hey, if I'm going to be somewhere, I'm glad we're in Pleasant Grove, okay? We couldn't have a better place to get through this, and I appreciate the council and their feedback, and especially my thanks goes out to our directors and all of our employees that keeping our city going. And boy, I can't say how much I appreciate. And as it just keeps on rolling here, and our toilets flush and our garbage disappears on Wednesday, and we can get a drink of water in the middle of the night and everything else. But hey, we'll get through this. And it's not just, I did forward to you just to follow up the Forest Service talking about shutting down American Fork Canyon. They're going to leave it open for, I got another email from them today, and they're going to try to keep Triple Fork open up there as long as they don't have groups congregating. So that is their plan for right now. So I just share that with you. So if you want to take a ride up the canyon, you may still be able to do it here. So, but anyway, we get, Kyler's got our remarks here from our open session.
We had one comment for our public session today, or open session today. It was from Tamara Oborn. She said, "I watched the work session. I am grateful for our city leaders and how well this very unique and never before seen situation has been handled. Thank you."
Okay. It's been good. So, hey, and it is, we're just a few minutes before 9 o'clock. So if we have nothing else to discuss this evening, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's city council meeting.
We have a
I'll
motion to
second it.
adjourn, and we have a second by who?
Diana?
Diana. We'll have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. See everyone.
Hey, I do